My name is Kenneth Balikoowa. I have and continue to be associated with Makerere University. And of course, I would imagine that so many things, everybody has their own idea of what a forest is. For some of us who have actually seen many forests, probably we have many different interpretations of a forest. But the beauty with forestry is that so many different ecosystems can fit in that definition of a forest. Those from the northern part of the country, you are accustomed to seeing woodlands, and in our definition of a forest, that also counts as a forest. And indeed, there can be benefits that can be derived even from woodlands. Those from the central, probably we are more accustomed to seeing tropical high forests. Those in the business sector, maybe you have seen the managed forests. So when we say forestry, there is actually a lot that can fit in there, whether the natural forest that you're just maintaining on your land, whether it is a forest that you've planted with very clear intentions, or whether it is these new types of forests that are emerging. I comment someone asking about bamboo. To someone, that could be what he has in mind when someone says forestry. So it means, therefore, that in terms of business opportunities, there is so much that you can explore in terms of what the final outcome of your land actually is. And because it means so many different things, we can get so many different benefits from forests, which means there are so many different potential revenue streams that you can get from a forest land, whether they be monetary benefits, the ones that maybe most of us understand and know, or sometimes we do get some benefits which are not monetary. And to some people, this could be the silver bullet, because if you're a conservationist like me, or inclined to conservation, then you invest it in terms of its value, but in terms of its value, you want to realize that for as long as possible, the benefit you derive from it. And it was so a premium to just have the experience of being in a forest. And you can have a forest land, and all your revenue is coming from the fact that people come and pay to experience the forest landscape. Okay, so when we say forestry, it is not only about consumptive use. It could also be about non-consumptive use values, and all those ones actually do have clear income streams if they are planned and well executed. So the thing I want to dwell on most is, if you're a prospective forest investor, what are some of those things that you have to pay attention to? The ones which make forestry unique as an investment. There are about 5 or also factors that really should be the point of departure when someone is considering a forestry investment, because they are very important and they can determine your outcomes. And these are, one, the fact that profitable forestry investment requires a lot of resources. That is a fact. It requires a lot of resources. It requires resources in the form of land. You can grow a forest on 1 acre of land, but you cannot compare to someone who's growing a forest on 10 acres of land, on 100 acres of land, or hectares of land, because of the economies of scale. The bigger in forestry, the bigger the better. You can grow one small forest for just your enjoyment, but if you're to go into it as a business, then you need more land. And the question here is, which land should you set aside for forestry? I saw a question in the chat before I lost it. How does it compare with agricultural production? if someone had land, would you better invest it in forestry or would you better invest it in agriculture production? No. The answer is, and it comes in the other factors to talk about. But if you're looking at beans and growing trees, there are so many ways in which you cannot compare, because we are talking about different time horizons. Someone who's growing a crop which is going to be harvested after 3 months, and another who's growing a crop which is going to be harvested after 18 years. Really, you'll find it very difficult to compare the two. But like I said, there is forestry. And actually, forest production is supposed to be, is best for what we call marginal lands. Marginal lands, that is land which is not very fertile. There are trees which can grow on land which is not very fertile for agricultural production, meaning maybe the nutrients are not close enough for the shallow roots of plants to take advantage of. Lands which are difficult to mechanize, hilly land, where mechanization and efficient crop production is not possible. Then you can use it for growing trees. Those kind of landscapes are where forestry beats agricultural production. Because if land is marginal, it's not fertile, it's not mechanized, it costs too much to put it under production than under forestry production. Okay, but if you have very fertile land, where you can easily grow cabbage, and maybe that would outcompete forestry. But like I said, it requires a lot of land, but there are lands which are available for forestry, almost ring-fenced for forestry. That is land that is in the forestry reserve. So authority is very willing to lease out to serious forestry investors with agricultural land, because in a forest reserves are only for forestry production. So if you can get access to land in forest reserves, then that's definitely that is an opportunity for you. Forestry requires a lot of capital, a lot of money. I was going to share in the slide an example of the financial outlay in the product in producing just one hectare crop. And you can see from just that snapshot that you need a lot of money in order to raise a growing trees. We are meaning that if you're following the best practices, you're doing it right. You're doing everything like it should be done. Not doing it just because you don't have time or because you don't have money or you don't have, if you're doing it well, then it requires a lot of capital input. And it is only if you do it well that you actualize what other people who are benefiting from forestry are getting. There's no shortcut about it. That is the one thing that most investors do not know about forestry. Then it requires a lot of labor, whether it is human labor or whether you're going to go mechanical. All that requires a lot of input in order to be in forestry. I usually give if you have a shop selling mobile phones on like 5 square footage in downtown, and put up one camera, a security camera, and put one gallery counter, and that's all you need, and you're running a 100 million business. But in forestry, that will not work. Okay, 100 million, you need a lot of people and workers, managers, and you cannot, cannot go about around those issues that come with hiring so many people. Now, the other unique factor, apart from the fact that it requires a lot of resources, is the time perspective. The time perspective. Forestry requires time. It requires patience. It requires someone in economics, they say, with a low discount rate, with a low time preference. Why? Because in order to benefit from forestry, you have to wait. You have to wait as dictated by the biological growth of a particular tree species. For instance, in other countries, in Scandinavia, for instance, if you were to a country like Norway or Sweden or Finland, which are countries which are like Sweden is almost sells nothing else apart from trees, from forests. Norway doesn't sell so much more. Yes, it has fish, it has oil, it also has forests. Finland doesn't sell so much else. It is just basically forests. And these are developed countries, and they have gotten all that wealth from forestry. But in Finland, in Sweden, in Norway, the trees they grow, it takes about 100 years for them to mature, to be harvested. Okay? Fortunately, in Uganda, you don't have to wait 100 years, fortunately. Because in Uganda now, thanks to plant breeding and a very good climate, you can actually plant a forest and harvest it depending on the product you want to get out of it. You can harvest eucalyptus in 2 years if you're producing these small construction poles, or even less. You can actually have eucalyptus logs for timber 12 years, at 8 years if they are clones. Okay, meaning that thankfully for us, even the time perspective is not so much of the problem. But comparatively to simsim, to groundnuts and sugarcane and all other agricultural crops, that is a long time to wait. And if you're investing as an individual, with individual targets, with individual objectives, waiting for 12 years can become a very big problem for you, because our planning horizon it cannot be that long. There are people who have and up to lunchtime to come, but ask them, why do I have to plan for 3 years to come? I'll plan when I get there. So for someone to consciously plant a forest which is only going to be harvested after 12 years, it is a big ask. Okay, but there are ways you can go about it in that time perspective. For other even more profitable tree species like teak, you're talking about 25 years in Uganda here. And for us, we look at it as a lifetime, but in other countries, 15 years is what it would take to raise seedlings in the temperate regions. So why then would we even have this one as an issue when we are having forest production, which is almost comparable to agricultural production? Now, the other issue that a prospective forester should be mindful about is the requirement for knowledge and skills. When you're going to invest in forestry, there is a lot of knowledge, a lot of skills that you need to have, or you need to have people who have that knowledge and skills. You need knowledge and skills in silviculture. You need the social skills. You need marketing skills. A lot of knowledge goes into having a successful forestry investment. And unfortunately, when people see them slashing, you see them weeding, hoeing, you imagine it is not technical, but you can hoe in the wrong way and decimate a whole stand. You can plant in a wrong, so it's not just about bodies. it is bodies that must have some basic skills. But most importantly, you need to have a manager who is an all-rounder. Because with forestry, we've just talked about the time perspective. If you get something wrong in the initial years, you may not recover, because you might realize that you made a mistake at planting when it is already 3 years later, and you cannot regain those 3 years. Okay, so the fact that it takes long means that you have to be very, very cautious about the people you employ, the people you use, the where you get your planting materials, when you plant, how you work. So many people in an investment that takes too long and which requires that you've invested a lot of money. Then the other one is that forestry is always encumbered by a lot of risks and uncertainties. I think in the slide somewhere I saw someone talk about some disease outbreak or some pests and disease. I think I had Ronald talk about termites. So forestry, trees have just as many diseases and pests as do animals. People who are into cattle, people who are into crops, they also have theirs. They look hard, they look like they are strong, but they are those of them adversity. So there are risks and uncertainties that you need to plan for. Okay. What I always say is that forestry is not for people who do not have time, people who don't want to make those frequent trips to go and see what is happening. No, you go into it cautiously, you invest, and you must also plan for these risks. But also because it takes a long time. It takes a long time. If 15 years, really in 15 years' time, a lot would have happened. Just think back 15 years ago, how many changes have happened in the past 15 years? Okay, we could have even changed the government. You have changed in 15 years' time. Now, if priorities, policy, climate, I don't think the climate we're experiencing now is the same climate we experience in the field. All that would definitely affect it. Markets. Recently, there was a ban. I think it is still on exportation of timber. Now, how did that one affect people who invested in forestry? Because for sure, when you move around the country, especially in those districts which are the main tree growing districts, Mitiana, Mubende, Nakaseke, those ones, Nakasongola, you really get the sense that, the people have actually planted trees. But for some reason, a directive came that you cannot export timber. Yes, we do have local markets, but were these people planting all these trees looking at the local market? Probably no, maybe some of them, most of them. Now there's a ban, which they would not have foreseen when they were when they were establishing their crops. So all this has to be factored in, and there are tools that we use in forestry to see whether at the onset an investor should go ahead with the particular decision based on the different risk scenarios that you expose your investment on. Then the last one under this is actually a good thing, that it allows for multiple objectives to be met on the same piece of land. Meaning, you can establish a forest to produce timber, to produce saw logs, but along the way, other streams can come up. An example I think I can give in this one, those of us who might have known about this, during the COVID time, people we are struggling to get, people don't want to be indoors for long. And a few months into the lockdown, people were exploring where can we go out. And then it happened that they could allow even gatherings as long as it is in an open space. Now, there's someone who has a forest, I think it's on near Gayaza, on Gayaza Road or towards Gayaza. I think it's called Nyungu Yamawe, something like that. The person just planted a forest. And then he converted it into some place where people can go, and it's out in the open. People can just sit under the trees, So that, but also it does pose certain challenges for investors, especially those who are going to invest or plant trees in the policy, the law, the National Forestry and Tree Planting Act, which allows that there are other benefits which the owner cannot exclude from the neighboring communities. Okay, that same space, if you're growing your forest under there, the local community have a right to access firewood and stuff like that. Those multiple uses can sometimes bring a lot of conflicts. And if you go into forestry when you are not aware of those issues, it could become a stone in your shoe that all of a sudden local communities are agitating for something that you did not plan to give them. All right, but are there opportunities? Are there opportunities? Yes, of course, there are various opportunities in forestry investment, forest business. For instance, according to the Uganda National Bureau of Statistics, Uganda has a negative wood asset account, meaning the amount of wood we need is much more than the amount of wood that we can produce. When you look at all our forest estate, whether they are forest reserves or on private land. Now, that means that as a country, we have to up our game and start producing wood really fast. And there's no other way that you can produce wood really fast apart from planting forest plantations, because the wood in natural forests has a sustainable output of production of about 2 cubic meters per hectare per year, and that is too low. We cannot. Our wood demand cannot depend on that kind of productivity that you can get from a natural forest. But in a plantation forest, with good silviculture, with good species selection, with the favorite production of almost 20 cubic meters per hectare per year, meaning that people invested in forestry actually are going to determine what prices they set, because with forestry and forest products, timber, logs, that kind of thing, you cannot quickly adjust and become a producer. Okay. We all maybe remember, I don't know how the composition of this group, but we all remember that when we are moving from, what was it called? From analog to digital, is it? From analog to digital television. It was a very sudden, yes, there was a bit of debate here and there, but it was a sudden change. That all of a sudden, we cannot use analog television, we have to use digital television. Now, that meant that even the sets, the equipment that we're using to relay television had to change very quickly. Now, if we were into a business of importing televisions, you can easily partake of that opportunity very, very quickly. And there could have been even people who are not in the TV business that saw that opportunity, that now we have to sell digital television televisions, smart TVs, and that kind of thing. And just got money and went to China, to Dubai, wherever they get those TVs from, and in 2 months started supplying people. Now, in a shift in the demand for best product, it will only be enjoyed by people who have. If all of a sudden, even if you wanted, it will still take you maybe 15 years in order to the fact that we have negative wood assets, negative wood asset accounts, means that in the future, or actually even at present, the people who have forests are actually in demand. My personal experience is there are people who come to my forest almost weekly. They keep calling, they keep increasing the price that they are willing to offer me in order for me to sell my trees to them. Why? Because if someone is converting timber, the one that the forest that is nearest to them is the one that is most feasible for them. And if the forest is not there, they cannot get their timber. And I mean, it is just as simple as that. The opportunity, because when you look at our wood as meaning, either going to have to import, okay, or could change to maybe some substitutes for the wood product, which we are seeing signs of, like in electricity poles. We started all of a sudden the past maybe 3-4 years, started seeing concrete poles, but still they are not enough to satisfy the market. So meaning that there's still a lot of opportunity in there. There's also another opportunity in carbon trading for those that have forest lands or forest estates that are not very productive in terms of timber and saw logs. Maybe northern Uganda, you have a woodland. You don't need to do anything, just retain it as a woodland, and then get the required connections and participate in the carbon trading market. Where they just come, quantify how much carbon you have, and then get some benefit out of it. But of course, at the same time, you're not losing anything. It is still your land, and this is just an additional stream. There are other benefits, like opportunities, like forest areas as recreational spaces. Increasingly, people are paying a premium to get to access set in forested areas or near forests. There's a hotel or in Mabira. It's called something, Mabira Resort, something like that. Which basically, apart from the bed and the table that we'll find in every hotel, is just the reason for paying $200 or $300 per night is because it is in a forest. There's no other reason, really. I've not been there because the price, it is out of my price range. Even I wouldn't have any use for it. But the fact that someone can pay $300 to spend a night in they call it what? In a cabin, not a cabin. How's it called? Forgotten. A small unit. Okay, means that there is something that they are attaching to the site where this accommodation is located. And if it is in Mabira, there is actually nothing else apart from the fact that it is in a forest. So as we lose more forest, the remaining forests are becoming more lucrative in terms of them being used as recreational spaces. And actually, in the future, when you have a forest, it could even be a woodland somewhere. Someone would be willing to come and maybe work with you, set up some units there, some cabins there, and charge a premium on the camping site. Or right now, I'm parked in Bugema, but I looked for a space under a tree. Okay, why? Because there is some benefit in keeping my car under a tree than if I'd left it out in the open. So those spaces in future are going to have a price attached to them. There's also an emerging field of bioenergy, where the majority of our households in Uganda use energy for biomass for energy. But the sources of this biomass energy have reduced considerably. We are now basically running out of areas to burn charcoal. They are actually becoming more strict on charcoal. But what is the outlook? The outlook is that a lot of families will continue deriving their energy from biomass, either raw firewood or charcoal. I would like to consider myself as having transitioned from firewood to another energy source. But even every other day when I'm leaving home, my people at home are reminding me to buy them charcoal, even if I think I've transitioned. So even these apartments that you see, someone is sneaking a sack or a kavera of charcoal up there, because the alternative is still very expensive, still not attainable. Still, our food systems are such that it would cost you much more to boil beans on gas or on electricity than to use charcoal. So in a way, we are still dependent on biomass energy. And maybe what we are lacking is investors that would convert our wood into charcoal more efficiently. We just need to improve the efficiency of conversion of charcoal from wood, such that if I have my forest, I could sell it as electricity poles or transmission poles. I would sell it as timber, but I would also prefer to choose to sell it as charcoal and still make a profit. So that is an area that clearly is there. But the others, wood, forest-based pharmaceutical industries, paper making. We're still importing almost all our paper because we do not have enough wood to make paper ourselves. Not that we don't have the technology. We cannot afford the technology to make paper. We actually can. But the problem with paper is that we do not have enough wood to be able to produce paper. Okay? But we need paper. We import paper. So if someone doesn't see an opportunity in that, if we had enough wood, we wouldn't need to import paper. We'd just get our wood and convert it into paper. But apparently we can't, because the wood is not, the wood estate, the forest estate is not big enough to support a paper making industry. So the other thing I wish you were seeing, the other bit is the whole value chain. If you're looking at forestry, there could be so many actors in the value chain. You could actually participate at all nodes. You have people, and we do have people who are investing in just forest nurseries, tree nurseries, rather. Tree nurseries, and that's it. They get seed, they produce tree seedlings, and that's it. Okay. there are those ones who grow trees and they could sell saw logs. There are those ones who grow trees and they could sell timber. There are those ones who have trees and they are selling carbon. There are those ones who have trees and could go into things like honey. We have eucalyptus honey. There are those ones who have trees and they could sell oil. We have eucalyptus oil. We can get those in the northern part of the country. Shea butter has a lot of benefits. So you really cannot fail to get where to attach. What we lack really is in the seriousness with which we do something in order to get the best out of it. So basically, what does it call of us, all investors? It calls us to plan for proper silviculture of our forest land. Know that in order to grow a forest and to grow it well, you need to have the silviculture skills. We've talked about this. I've talked about this. You need to pay attention to the silviculture, because it is only wishful thinking that you'll have the forest that you've seen by not doing what they have done. Okay? You may have gone past by someone's forest, you see it looking good, then you go back and think you'll just automatically, naturally just get there. No, you don't. You get there, there are certain steps that you have to take, there are certain investments that you have to make. And but if you do, you certainly can get there. We need to pay attention a lot to the inputs in our forest investments, the seed, the chemicals. You can run out of forestry and even curse all foresters if you happen to source seedlings from the wrong source. You set out to plant 100 hectares, you have your money, saved it, go to plant, and then plant the wrong planting materials. Why? Because you didn't get the advice that you needed in a species selection. In site selection, species about that, you need to have someone who is skilled to help you run the investment. You can't run it on your own. You need a forester, okay? A forester who knows species. For this, you need to get seedlings from this particular source, and for these reasons. Because with respect like to seedlings, when you go around, you'll find the same seedlings. Okay, they appear to be the same. If it is pine, you go to the roadside nursery and they are willing to sell you pine seedlings for 300 shillings, 250 shillings, okay? Even 200 shillings, or even less than 200 shillings. And then you go to another nursery operator and he says, for me here, my pine seedlings are 800 shillings. Now, the temptation to an investor, if you want to plant like 100 hectares, the temptation is always there. That let me go and get seedlings from this person who is cheaper. That one is always there. Because based on silviculture, if you're planting pine and you're planting 100 hectares, you probably need maybe 100 and you need maybe 1 million seedlings. I don't know the math, because it's 1,111 for every hectare. So to plant 100 hectares, you basically need maybe 100. Well, there's a math there. Now, to get those number of seedlings, to plant 100 hectares for, okay, let me call it 10. If you're planting 10 hectares and every hectare is taking you 1,200 seedlings, you need 12,000 seedlings. Okay, I hope I'm right. Now, 12,000 seedlings, if each is being bought at 200 shillings, you probably need, I don't know, 12 million, 24 million, something like that. But if you're buying them at 800 shillings per seedling, then the cost of seedling becomes very high. And that's where the temptation is. So the temptation is, if you want to plant a lot, you want to look for the cheapest seed source. And the difference between a good seed source, seedling source, and the poor seedlings, they look like they are the same. You find them in the nursery, they are all looking like, they look the same. But the difference will come out when they are grown, or when they are growing, when they are like 5 years old. That is when you realize that, oh my God, all my pine trees are like spaghetti, boiled spaghetti or noodles. You know, they're all crooked. You can't get a straight one. They are all a mess. But why? Because you got the wrong planting material. And the wrong planting material is there everywhere on the roadside. Okay. So the input is very important. The chemical, you know, if you are going into chemical weed control, you could easily land on a seller in a container village that gives you counterfeit glyphosate, herbicide. Okay, let's assume that you're using a herbicide. Of course, not the most ideal, but the most economical, more or less. If you got the wrong, because we're talking about big areas with a lot of input, the loss is so high. You know, you find you've bought herbicides for like 10 million, and they completely do not work. You know, you have herbicides for 10 million. You have employed labor to use herbicides of 10 million. That maybe cost you another maybe 12 million. Okay, I'm just giving an example. Now, if the herbicides you got are 12 million and employed labor at 12 million to spray an area was the wrong herbicide, the loss to you is not just the herbicide. It is the herbicide, it is the labor that you have employed to apply the wrong herbicide, and the time that you will have lost, because then the weeds will not die, and then your trees are not growing, and by the time you realize that you had the wrong chemical, employed people you shouldn't have employed, and then the weeds have not died, the trees have lost, you've lost money. So everything multiplies because of the things we've talked about. Large areas takes long, meaning that we have to be very, very mindful about the decisions we make. The other one that people don't pay attention to are social issues. You have your forest land. It is situated somewhere. Probably your neighbors are not into forestry, or even if they were, there are some social issues associated with forestry. Either there's a conflict between you and the neighbors with respect to what you should use your land for. There's a conflict between your workers and the neighbors with respect to how they are acting in the area. Now, all those ones are a direct threat to your what? To your forest. Meaning that if you have a forest investment, then you're going to have to invest a lot in even these other social issues. Things which do not directly contribute to your forest growth, but are needed for the sustenance of your forest investment. You know, like greeting a neighbor, making sure that you are extending some kind of benefits to the local people, those who are around your area, especially if it's a big forest. Okay, because you want them to have a favorable attitude towards it. Why? Because with the forest, it doesn't matter how much money you've spent in it. It doesn't matter really. All it takes is one disgruntled person with one matchbox, and you don't have a forest anymore. One person, one matchbox, and a disgruntled attitude, and you will have lost 10 years of work. Okay, so it means that when you have a forest, the people around, okay, whether if someone calls you, for instance, that you see, I have some issue at home. I have a rumbe, and I want some 10 poles from your forest. Don't be the hard one. Don't say no. My forest you cannot go and cut. You know, because that you are propagating a risk by not cultivating a positive attitude between yourself and the neighbors of your forest. Not that you should do philanthropy and give out everything to people, but there are ways. And if you have a good manager, there are ways that can enable them have a favorable attitude towards your forest investment. So basically, what the things we are going through are not things that many investors really look out for. Like I said in the other example, that if you have 100 million, go and bring mobile phones, iPhones, or whatever, Samsung phones. Get some space in downtown. Get the strongest padlock. Maybe get one security guy in front of the road. That's it. Your investment is secure. But in a forest, if it is on 100 acres, those could be 1 square mile. Could even be traversing several villages. How would you secure it? You secure it by having a good social relationship with the people that live around it. So now this one may not, the next slide here will not be very useful, because I was supposed to show you the financial outlay for one eucalyptus stand, and the issue here was to give you a visual that when you're planting a forest in the initial years, there's a lot of expenditure. The outlay is negative. The net benefit is negative, because you're putting in much more than you're putting in actually, and you're not getting anything because the trees are still growing. There are no benefits here. In future, when the forest is mature, then you get a very positive outlay, a very positive return. Now, does that mean that if you sold, looking at this one, if it was 1 hectare of eucalyptus and you harvest it and get 30 million, does it mean that you've gotten 30 million? Of course, no. And you should not make your decision based on 30 million that you are probably going to get in 10 years' time. We in forestry we have a process we call discounting, which is not very common in other businesses, because for them they are not so much affected by time. When importing goods from China, the decisions that you make, the money that you make when you sell the goods, actually is very comparable to the money that you put in. You just look for the difference. But I used 100 million, I've sold my merchandise, and I've gotten 120 million. So I've made a profit of 20 million. Now with forestry, if you put in 100 million and you get 120 million in 10 years' time, you need to look at that extra 20 million and discount it. What is its value with respect to the time it has taken me to get it? Okay, and of course that would reduce the value of the benefits that you get. But then how does someone make a decision as to whether I should invest or not? Because let's remember that the money that you're investing in forestry is potentially available for you to invest in other business ventures. It is potentially available. You can go into jewelry, you can go into importing clothes, you can do anything with it. But how then do you decide that and put it in forestry? So you need to have somebody who can advise you on the actual financial implication of the money that you're investing and the money that you're going to get in future, based on your what we call interest rate, based on what you compare your forestry investment with. Okay, if your interest rate is, then definitely the future values are less. It was low, because interest rate is really an indicator of how much would you have made on the money that you're investing if you put it in an alternative investment. Now, if you have an alternative investment which makes much more money at maybe 20% interest, then investing in forestry becomes a very big problem. Okay, it's only if the alternative investment is you can invest in forestry, but characteristically, when you are individuals, your interest rate is very high. And when your interest rate is very high, then you're most likely going to take a decision to invest in forestry. When you are groups, when you are groups, when you are okay, when you are grouped up, let me say you have an investment club, you have maybe a family fund, then the interest rate is much lower, and the decision to invest in forestry becomes much easier because, like we say, forestry is not really a business, and by business we mean something that someone does to get money quickly to run their daily lives. It is more of an investment, where you really put in money, but it is not, you don't need that money for your everyday sustenance. If I can give an example, I had a friend in Scandinavia. He was not a friend, but a father to my friend. He was about 60 years old, 65 years old. And he was planting a forest that he was very, very sure that he is not going to harvest it, 100% sure. He was 100% sure that his son will not harvest it. He was 100% sure that his grandson will not harvest it. But he's planting it for his great-grandson, but with the same level of enthusiasm. Why? Because he says that the trees that he was cutting were planted by his great-grandfather, whose picture he even doesn't know. Even doesn't know how he looked like. But the trees he planted like 100 and so many years ago are what he's harvesting now. Okay, so I wish we had that kind of outlay where you do something, but for future, for investing, and you get you like you would like that gentleman who was planting a forest for a great grandson, yet his son was even not having children yet. You understand? So forestry is really for investment, where people expect to get returns much in future. How does it? A lot of questions that come from people that seem to be anti-forestry are because you're looking at business people, and if you're a businessman, then there are better alternatives. But if you're an investor, then it is about the best alternative, because the other side of the coin is that while other investments are very susceptible to very small changes, the trees, whether there is a war, unless the rebels decide to just cut the trees, bullets will be flying, but the trees will be growing. And if the war ends, the one who had planted trees will come and find these trees will be much bigger than they were when the war started. You understand? So there are some good and bad things about forestry that we should know. But well, I'm a teacher, and I can talk forever, but I knew I had not the whole day to talk. So maybe Ronald, I would end at that, and then maybe we just go into some of the questions that we are being asked. And now I've lost most of them because I kept.
Thank you so much,
I kept,
Dr. Kenneth.
lovely
Lovely submission, and I particularly like that last bit of the perspective, the forester's perspective of what investment means. And I think that may challenge some mindsets which some of us have about what an investment looks like. But I think that ability to look deep into the future is by far one of the most powerful bits. I'm going to try and just possibly run through again some of the questions which were asked, and we see how far we can go. I know our time is fast spent, but we will have an opportunity to just see how far we can be able to go. So I'll start with
okay. Maybe you go.
Okay. I just wanted to run through the questions. I'll just do them quick fire, and we see how far we can go. So Bossa says, in the 70s and 80s, eucalyptus trees used to be planted in the swamps to reclaim the land because of its capacity to suck water. Now it's planted to replace natural forest. This has affected agricultural land near those areas. Doctor, you can possibly give your quick comments about that.
Yeah, the very quick one is this is Bira Bossa. Now, in the 70s and 80s, yes, some species of eucalyptus can be planted to reclaim wetlands or swamps, so swampy areas, not really wetlands, because they can grow in those areas. Those are not exactly the trees that we are growing now. Actually, if you try to grow eucalyptus, the ones that you find on the roadside being sold in a swamp, they will not reach 2 years. After some time, they will start falling. Okay, so there's a difference in the species, and a lot of investors have actually made that mistake where they think, I have my land, I have some wet areas, I can, because I've always seen eucalyptus growing in wetlands. So the species they get is not the one that they have seen. So if you are to go for that, then you have to probably go to the National Forest Authority. I think they're the only ones that have the type of eucalyptus that can grow in wet areas, if indeed you can be allowed to grow in those waterlogged areas. Yeah, but yeah, like you said, when we, and I mentioned it, that forestry really should be for marginal lands, and eventually it will become a moral issue if we have converted all our agricultural land into forest land. Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor. Someone talked about bamboo. First of all, is bamboo also forestry? And then I think someone had asked earlier, and Millie says, I've planted bamboo on 1.5 acres. I planted 250 seedlings. I want to know if there is a marker of bamboo. If there is a marker for bamboo trees, I am making sure I take care of them to thrive. I want to know if there is, just give me one moment, and I expand this so that I can see. Okay. I want to know if there is marker for bamboo trees. Am I sure
probably made market.
I can take a market? Yes,
I
market.
I think you wanted to write market. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, there is market for bamboo. The only thing is that these new streams develop very, very slowly. But there's a market for bamboo. People use bamboo for as a roofing material. Yes, there is. Whether you can go for it full throttle, I don't know yet, because the market is not that well developed. Because bamboo is more useful as a raw material for making small pricey items, not as wood structurally. Although structurally it is very strong, but that market we are still developing. And where we're getting bamboo from, the China, South Korea, they already have a lot of it. That getting that sustainable big market will be a problem. But at a small scale, since it is 1 acre, yes, there's indeed bamboo market. True.
All right, thank you. David Tweheo says, I have a forest project in Mitoma district sitting on about 5 acres. The biggest part is indigenous trees, shrubs, and herbs. The other part carries 2-year-old packs of improved eucalyptus. My idea is agro-tourism. Is there, it has 4 aspects. It talks about a PRA, yes. And I think possibly here, David was sharing with us what he's doing, but
Yeah,
someone
just a comment, yeah.
asked about this question between indigenous trees and what you'd call the commercial trees. And I think actually even Dr. Kadama talked about Mituba growing. Just possibly paint a picture on the first of all, the contrast between the indigenous trees and what you call the commercial new the commercial more exotic trees, and then possibly what's the economics behind both of them, and possibly there are some environmental issues which we need to consider and why those trees are important.
Okay, yes. Now, there are so many dimensions to look at which to approach that. But it all goes back to the objective of the forest owner, the one who owns the land where the trees are. And like we said, forestry has multiple objectives. If you have an owner who is hell-bent on having a good, a complete ecosystem, then there is nothing you'll say that will compel them to go for a monoculture. I mean, the 311 commercial kind of landscape with the one species, well managed, high, very productive. So it really goes back to what value you attach to having the kind of landscape that having many different trees gives you as a person. Okay, because if it gives you that satisfaction, what we call the non-use value, which sometimes is actually much higher than the use value, then most likely you're going to maintain it. Now, the other way I would approach where people have gone full throttle on commercial, planted one species, everything looks the same. I mean, maybe all of us have driven or walked through a landscape with sugarcane. What is the first impression you get? Sugarcane, or even if it is a plantation, but of one species, a plantation of eucalyptus, a plantation of pine. Yes, it looks good, but there's always that thing like, oh God, I wish it had very many different species. Okay, because our strength as a country or as a region, those temperate, I mean, tropical areas, the strength we have is in diversity. Okay, the more we keep on our landscape, the more opportunities we have in the future to even get better benefits from them. Okay, I don't know if maybe in the context of Uganda, if 60 years ago anyone would have imagined that you can grow eucalyptus and harvest it in 5 years. It was probably not imagined. Okay, but because there was eucalyptus, eucalyptus was available to be improved to one which can grow in a very short time. We are getting that benefit. So as a conservationist, I would say to the extent possible, let us have some areas which are dedicated to having that diversity, such that we don't exhaust. You never know the seemingly non-commercial tree species may have other values that we don't know now, but are going to be useful in future. I'll just give it a small one. In a class I teach elsewhere, I always give them the example of there's some plant, okay, not a plant, there's something called algae. Okay, algae. I don't know how many of us know algae. It is something you find in swampy water. It makes it look greenish. That substance there. No one would have imagined that in future that algae is actually where we're going to be deriving all our energy from, the energy to run cars. Okay, so where are the deposits of algae? In swamps. Okay, so what if we had reclaimed all the swamps? Who knows? Maybe even our wetlands in future will be booming with algae, and then we shall be getting that algae, extract it, get the hydrocarbons, and then make energy out of them, and then get money that we didn't think we would get. So, if you ask me, because I'm a conservationist, I would want what possible, especially where it is marginal, where the profitability of going for full throttle on commercial is not so high, to maintain them as with a lot of natural indigenous trees, for the existence value of them. Okay.
Thank you so much. I think we may have time for just a couple more. Rosemary asks, please shed more light on carbon trading. Practically, how does it happen? And where does a forester go to have the carbon measured or documented? Who pays and how? Just possibly paint a bit more light on the carbon credit. And possibly I'll add what David added. Does carbon trading discriminate against eucalyptus and coffee farmers?
Okay. Now, carbon trading is a kind of industry where landowners are paid money for retaining trees on their land, or for planting trees on their land that fix carbon. Now, the market is organized in a way that one, they have to verify that what you're planting is a tree. That is how your bamboo is excluded, and that is how coffee is excluded, because they consider coffee to be a crop, not a tree. Unfortunately, even if there are several studies which have shown that actually coffee also does, apart from the berries and everything, but does fix a lot of carbon. But of course, the debate is there, and the trees have joined the carbon list and come off, not come off, but join the carbon list, depending on persuasion. Now, the tricks in the carbon market are that the conditions, because you're being paid for something that you are not, like let me say Uganda Wildlife Authority has a lot of land that they control, having trees on them, but they do not really maintain them for carbon. But they are being rewarded for maintaining them, such that they continue giving that service to the global community. Now, the challenge is that in order to participate in the carbon market, there has to be verification. Okay, and they verify ownership of the land, meaning you must have proof of ownership that the land is yours. A lot of us have land which is not documented, so that excludes you. Two, they have to verify how much carbon is there. That is the assessment, which is very, very expensive for you to get someone to assess, unless they develop other tools and mechanisms of determining forest carbon remotely, not having to measure with the Sunto and I know, Ronald, you've done forestry, you know those things. The other one is that the carbon market does not deal directly with the owner. It is through an intermediary. Okay, now that is what also complicates a lot of issues, and we do have some intermediaries in Uganda. I think there's is it carbon finance something? I forget the name. Now these intermediaries are actually the ones that sell the carbon on behalf of the farmer. Okay, they are increasing the cost of the transaction, because they also have to get some money off a significant amount of land, such that these intermediary, they broker and do all the verification and inventory of your forest before they can sell it. Okay, so it is not a very straightforward market, because even the big forest owners or land owners like Uganda Wildlife Authority are finding it to benefit. So it is there theoretically, but practically it is a bit of a problem breakthrough. If I may just very brief. Ronald? Or was it
Thank
not
you.
Ronald?
Thank you, Dr. Kenneth. I think as you have rightly
Yes,
put,
please.
many of us have heard about carbon credit. And I guess the big question has been, where shop do we go to sell it? And as you have put it, it's still an evolving sector, and we possibly need to keep an eye on it. Possibly with time, I know the opportunity may become clearer, but as you have rightly put it, it may not be right now. So, Doctor, we'll have one final question, and then we will wrap up the day. The question between eucalyptus versus pine, which is more financially rewarding? Which one? I think this debate is ongoing, but I just want to pick your mind.
That is something I've also struggled with personally, because I grow both. But I don't think it is a straightforward answer. If I give a straightforward answer, then I'm being simplistic. And I can explain. The reason is that those products have other factors which are quite lucrative, because everybody who had, especially government, when government is procuring their wood, they had a preference for pine, because we had all this pine which was all mature, and there were no bad experiences from the end users. Then when the private owners started harvesting their pine, they started selling thinnings, which is really immature wood. And this now the conversion technology allows you to cut into timber, small pieces of timber, even very young pine trees. Now, just that one changed the user experience, and then people started whatever. They did not like pine anymore. Now, all of a sudden, the market for pine went towards eucalyptus. Now, there's clonal eucalyptus, which was introduced in Uganda, but we got it from South Africa, and we are being grown as energy crops. Meaning that by the time the tree is harvested, it has not yet hardened properly, if I may call it that, for everybody to understand. So if you put it in some uses, it structurally it is not very good. Now, after using eucalyptus for some time, people are realizing that eucalyptus is not very good. It is bending. It is, now the price has come down. But to a farmer, based on the current trends, of course, eucalyptus is better. Of course, eucalyptus is better, because in the rotation of pine, a eucalyptus farmer would have had 3 or 2.5 rotations. If pine takes about 16 years, with the eucalyptus, you could have harvested in the same area 3 times. And it is very hard to beat that. So eucalyptus kind of outperforms pines on the same piece of land. However, eucalyptus is more selective in terms of where it can grow than pine. Okay, so there are areas in Uganda, eucalyptus has like a belt within which it can grow. You can't go so far north. Okay, there are areas where eucalyptus cannot grow, and unfortunately, those are the areas where there's a lot of land which can be used for forestry. So, depending on where you are, depending, in terms of climatic placement, where you are, you may find that someone goes for pine, not because it is more profitable than eucalyptus, but because it's the one which can grow there. So, depending on where the plantation is located, relative to the market for a particular product. I'll give an example. I have a forest of eucalyptus around Mukono here. They're just like 10 kilometers from Mukono town. Now, where my forest is, eucalyptus, I tell you construction poles at 5, the bigger ones even 20 out of sense. Now, if my forests were located very far from where there's that ready market, people who have the same eucalyptus, growing the same eucalyptus clones in Rakai, they are selling a eucalyptus pole, which the eucalyptus pole I'm selling at 5,000, 7,000. They can only 1,000. Why? Because the person who is going to buy it from you needs to factor in the cost of bringing it all the way to what? To the market. And there's no way they're going to give you when they're going to sell it 8,000 in Kampala. There's no way. So, depending on where you are, if it was, however, because pine is only grown to produce timber, is much higher than the value of what. So the sensitivity to distance from the market for pine is less than for eucalyptus because of the end product. Get from. So what I'm trying to paint, the picture I'm trying to paint is that it is not a eucalyptus better, pine is better. No, it depends where you are, what you're producing. Sometimes one is pine, is hardy, you still have crop even if the area looks very, very sketchy. So, like I said, I don't want to give yes or no. It really depends. But if it were in an area like where my forest is, near the market in Mukono, there's a lot of rain, the soil is good, and the soil I'm not really intending to use it for agriculture, so I can use it for forestry. Definitely, eucalyptus is better because it has a shorter rotation. And I'm near a readily available market. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Kenneth. Very, very elaborate conversation. I believe there are still a number of unanswered questions, but it's a sign that possibly we need to do this again sometime. But just a big thank you, team which has joined. Thank you so much. Dr. Kenneth, I just want to give you a couple of minutes, just share your final remarks, any final messages to the group which has joined us, and then we can be able to wrap up the day.
Okay. Yes, I think you're not, I don't know how to wrap up a whole I think being the advice to all of us is not to take for granted the requirement for skill. That if you're going to invest in forestry, you're really committing a lot of money and you're committing a lot of time. I cannot stress it enough how important it is to have the right team. If you're not a forester, get a knowledgeable forester insist on them writing for you an elaborate plan, which if you got another forester maybe to look at, we'll be able to determine whether the was knowledgeable, he knows the trends, he knows his culture, he knows his economics, he can project, he can, that is the only reason, that's the only way you're going to get it right. Okay? Because in forest implementation, if you fail to plan, you're going to implement, you're going to use the money, sure, doing all those things, but you'll not get what you want because you do not have a good plan to follow for your investment. And like I said, because it takes time, you don't want to get it wrong. Since by the time you realize that you got it wrong, you'll not, you most likely you'll not be able to come back and correct the mistakes you made. So mistakes in forestry are mistakes you live with for a very long time. And I think that one we should all avoid if we want to be successful investors in forestry. Thank you, Ronald.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Kenneth. And I particularly like that last message. Make sure you have the right skill, the right knowledge, seek that knowledge. Dr. Kenneth is part of that ecosystem which supports the forestry. And I believe that it's a big ecosystem. So seek the knowledge, get onto a WhatsApp group with experts who can be able to kind of share with you the right knowledge. Dr. Kenneth, when you shared about the challenge of living long, I have one of my bosses who once planted an orange and only discovered it was a lemon after 5 years. So when the fruit started coming, so certainly we live a bit longer with mistakes in that sector. Big thank you for those of you who want business health check. The form has been shared in the chat box. Please do make sure you register and you take part. Friends, a big thank you for the people who join us every other week. Thank you so much. I see so many of you. For those of you joining us for the very first time, every Thursday at exactly 9, we come together, we discuss. Dr. Kenneth, thank you so much for blessing us. It's been just an enriching conversation. We hope we can have another one sometime in the future to dig even deeper. All the best and have a blessed week.